He is not there. You reach for him, not physically, not anymore, but in the way the mind reaches, in the way the heart keeps looking for what it knows should be present, in a way you walk through a home that still holds the shape of a life you built together and feel the absence like a weight that has no edges. He is not there, not at the table, not in the bed, not at the end of the day when the house goes quiet and the children are asleep and the silence has a different quality now. Not the silence of a man who is resting nearby, but the silence of a man who has gone somewhere you cannot follow and who's going left no clean explanation, no real goodbye, no closed door you can point to and say, that is where it ended. He just left, or he was taken by something, by someone, by a choice, by a drift that began long before the physical departure and only became visible when the door actually closed behind him. And you are here, still here, in the home he left, holding a life you did not choose to hold alone, praying prayers you never imagined you would need to pray. And the question that follows you through every room, through every ordinary task, through every moment of every day that asks you to keep going without him. The question you brought to God 100 times without receiving what feels like an answer is this: is he coming back? And if he is coming back, what prayer, what specific, targeted, spiritually grounded prayer can reach him where he is and begin to move him toward the door he walked out of? Padre Pio knew this prayer. He was asked for it. Not once, not by one woman, but by the many wives who made the journey to San Giovanni Rotondo, carrying exactly what you are carrying now. And he gave it, not as a formula, not as a guaranteed mechanism, but as a prayer that he said, with the full authority of a man who had seen the invisible world with complete clarity, does not return empty. Today I'm going to give you that prayer. But first I need to show you why most prayers for the return of a husband who is left do not reach him. Not because God is not listening, but because most women are praying the prayer that feels most natural. And Padre Pio said the most natural prayer in this situation is also the least powerful one. But before I go there, before I show you what is blocking your prayer from reaching the man who left, I need to ask you something. If you're watching this video right now, you are not watching it casually. You are watching it because there's a specific man, a specific absence, a specific emptiness in a specific house that brought you to this moment. And I want you to know that Padre Pio, from heaven, right now, sees that emptiness with the same eyes that saw every soul who knelt before him in his confessional. He does not see a statistic. He does not see a category. He sees you, by name, in your specific situation, with the specific man who left and the specific prayer your heart has been crying out. And I want you to write in the comments right now, just these words, Padre Pio, bring him home. Write it, not as a magic formula, but as a declaration to heaven that you have not given up, that you're still here, that you're still praying. And if you know a woman who is living this same emptiness, a friend, a daughter, a sister who is holding a home together alone and barely holding herself together at the same time, write her name in the comments. Write it so that we can stand in prayer with her right now, in this moment, as a community of souls who know that no prayer offered together in faith before God returns to earth without having done something in the invisible world. Write her name, write your declaration, and then stay with me, because what I am about to show you is the most complete teaching Padre Pio left on the specific prayer for the husband who is physically left home. And it begins with something you have almost certainly never been told. Let me start with a question Padre Pio asked a woman who came to him after her husband had left the home 6 months earlier. She had been praying every day for his return. She had made novenas. She had gone to Massachusetts. She had lit candles before the image of Our Lady. She had done everything she knew to do, and she told Padre Pio, "Father, I've been asking God every single day to bring my husband back, and he has not come back. I don't understand why God is not answering." And Padre Pio looked at her, not unkindly, but with that directness that those who experienced it described as a kind of holy surgery. And he said, "Tell me precisely, when you pray for your husband to return, what are you asking God to return to you?" The woman was confused by the question. She said, "My husband. I am asking God to return my husband." And Padre Pio said, "Which husband? The man who left. Return him exactly as he left? Or the man God created him to be? Return that man." She was silent for a long moment, because she had never separated those two things. She had been praying for the return of the man who left. But Padre Pio was telling her that the man who left, exactly as he left, in the state he was in when he walked out the door, was not the answer to her prayer. He was the problem. What she needed to ask God for was not the return of that man. It was the transformation of that man, and then his return. And those are two different prayers. And they move in two entirely different ways in the invisible world. This distinction between praying for a husband's return and praying for a husband's transformation toward return is the foundation of everything Padre Pio taught about this situation. And I need to sit with you in it for a few minutes before I give you the prayer itself. Because until you understand why this distinction matters, the prayer will be words. But when you understand it, the prayer becomes something else entirely. A living spiritual action with direction and force and a target that is precise enough to actually hit what needs to be hit. When a husband leaves home, he does not leave as a fully free man. This is something Padre Pio said with great conviction, and something the Catholic tradition of spiritual combat has understood for centuries. A man who walks away from a covenant, from a sacramentally sealed marriage, from children, from a life built in love, does not do so as a free act of a liberated soul. He does so as a man who has been moved by a combination of forces, some his own weakness, some the specific wounds of his history, some the influence of another person or situation, and some, Padre Pio would insist on this, something spiritual, something that worked in him long before the departure and was already building toward it, exploiting every crack in his interior life, every unhealed wound, every unconfessed sin, every area where the connection to God had grown thin. The man who left is not a simple man who made a simple decision. He is a complicated soul in spiritual danger, being pulled by forces he may not be able to name, and a prayer for his return must be complex enough to address the actual complexity of what is holding him away. And most prayers for return are not complex enough. They are simple, they are sincere, they are heartfelt, but they are aimed at the wrong target. They are aimed at the behavior, at the physical departure, when the behavior is only the last visible expression of an interior reality that has been building for much longer. And Padre Pio said, if you pray only for the man to come back through the door, and God answers that prayer without the interior transformation, you'll have the man back in the house, and the same forces that drove him out will drive him out again. Or worse, he will stay, and the marriage will be a tomb. A man in the house is not the same as a husband returned. A husband returned must be a man transformed. So the prayer Padre Pio left is not a prayer for a man to walk back through a door. It is a prayer for the interior journey that must precede the walking back through the door. It is a prayer that works from the inside out, that begins with the soul of the man and moves toward the physical reality of his return. And this makes the prayer slower in some ways than the simple prayer for return, but it makes it real. And Padre Pio said, "A real answer slowly is better than a quick answer that solves nothing." Now let me show you the 3 things that are most commonly holding a husband away from return, because the prayer addresses each of these, and you need to know what you're praying against. The first thing holding the husband away is what Padre Pio called the false peace of the departure. Every man who leaves home, no matter what circumstances surround the leaving, passes through a moment of relief. A moment where the tension that had been building in the interior life, the weight of the conscience that had been growing heavier, the noise of the spiritual conflict, all of it seems to lift. He walks out the door, and for a moment he can breathe. And that breathing, that false peace, is one of the most dangerous spiritual states a man can be in, because it tells him a lie. It tells him that the leaving was the right choice, that the relief he feels is evidence of liberation, that the discomfort he was living in at home was the problem, and removing himself from the home was the solution. But Padre Pio said, and this is something he observed repeatedly in men who came to his confessional months or years after leaving their families, that this false peace never lasts. It cannot last because it is not built on truth. The relief is real, but it is not peace. It is the relief of a man who has stopped fighting a battle, not because he won, but because he walked off the battlefield. And the battle is still there. The wound that drove the departure is still unhealed. The conscience that was pressing so hard is still pressing, just quieter now because the immediate pressure of the marriage situation has been removed. But it does not go away. It waits. And Padre Pio said, the false peace of the departure is, in the mercy of God, always temporary. God allows it to exist for a time, because the man needs the space to be brought to his senses, but he does not allow it to be permanent. Because a permanent false peace in a man who has abandoned his covenant is not mercy, it is damnation. The prayer for return then begins by asking God to work in the false peace, to let it do what it needs to do, give the man space and breath, and then to thin it, to let the real questions begin to surface through it, to let the temporary relief reveal itself as temporary. The second thing holding the husband away is what Padre Pio called the web of the New World. When a husband leaves home, he does not leave into emptiness. He leaves into something, a different arrangement, a different relationship, a different version of daily life that is in some ways easier and in some ways more exciting than the life he left. The newness has its own momentum. It does not require the effort of a long marriage, the honest work of knowing and being known, of repairing and being repaired, of carrying the weight of a shared history that includes failures and griefs as well as joys. The new world is lighter, and that lightness is its own pull. Padre Pio said something very precise to a woman whose husband had left for a younger woman. She asked him, "Father, how does a man just forget 20 years? How does he look at a new person and feel more for her than for the woman he built a life with?" And Padre Pio said, he is not forgotten. He is covered. Covering is not the same as forgetting. The 20 years are still there, underneath everything he has built over them in this new season. They are waiting, and they are heavy. And the weight of what is buried underneath the new world is one of the things that will, in time, bring it all down. Because a man cannot build a true life on top of 20 buried years. The foundation is wrong, and he knows it, even if he cannot admit it yet. The web of the new world has pull, and it has weight, and it has the particular seduction of requiring less from a man who is exhausted by the demands of real love. And the prayer for return must address this web, not by asking God to make the new world collapse in a way that destroys the man, but by asking God to let the man see through it, to let the thinness of it become visible to him, to let the weight of what is buried begin to make itself felt, to let the 20 years or 10 years or 5 years begin to speak in a language the new world cannot match. The third thing holding the husband away is the most serious, and it is also the thing that is closest to the door of return. Padre Pio called it the fear of the face of the wife. And I need you to understand this carefully, because it sounds like a strange thing to say. The husband who left, the man who is now living in the new world, in the false peace, in the web of a different life, is afraid of you. Not in the way a child is afraid of a parent. Not in a way that has anything to do with your personality or your behavior. He is afraid of the truth that your face carries for him. He is afraid of the love that your face represents, a love that, unlike almost everything else in his life right now, knows exactly what he has done and continues to exist anyway. He is afraid of the covenant that your face represents, the vows, the years, the children, the life you walked away from. He is afraid, more than anything, of what he will feel if he truly allows himself to see your face and remember. Padre Pio said something that cuts straight to the heart of this. He said, "The husband who left is often more afraid of returning than he was of leaving, because leaving was a move toward something new. Returning is a move toward the full weight of what he has done. And that weight, the weight of the hurt he has caused, the damage he has created, the years he cannot undo, that weight sits at the threshold of the home he left. And a man who has not been prepared to carry that weight will stop at the threshold. He will get close, and he will feel the weight, and he will turn back. So the prayer for return must also prepare the man to cross the threshold, must ask God to build in the man the capacity for the specific courage that return requires, the courage to face the face of the wife, to carry the weight of what he has done, to walk through the door not as the man who left, but as the man who knows what the leaving cost and has come back anyway. And this is the courage that only grace can build, because no human willpower produces the kind of humility required to return after having left. It can only come from an interior encounter with God, an encounter the wife's prayer can prepare, position, and call down. And here, if you have been watching this, if you have been sitting with these three things and recognizing the man you're praying for in each of them, I want to stop for a moment and say something directly to you, because what I am describing is heavy. The false peace, the web of the new world, the fear of the threshold. These are not obstacles that move quickly or easily. And I want you to know that Padre Pio never promised ease to the women who came to him in this situation. He promised truth. And the truth includes the fact that the prayer for return is a long prayer, a deep prayer, a prayer that requires a kind of perseverance that most of us do not naturally have. But he also said something that I want you to carry as you go into the prayer itself. He said, the prayer of a wife for her husband's return is not a prayer that goes into a void. It goes into the soul of the man she is praying for. And a prayer that goes into a soul never disappears. It works. It may work slowly in ways she cannot see, but it works because the God who designed the covenant is the God who receives the prayer for its restoration. And he does not take that prayer lightly. So I want you to subscribe to this channel right now and hit the bell notification, because this teaching is one of many that I'm going to continue bringing you. teachings drawn from Padre Pio's own words, from the testimonies of those who knew him, from the spiritual tradition he lived and breathed. And every time I publish a new video, the bell will bring it to you without your having to search. Subscribe now, hit the bell, and let me give you the prayer itself, because everything I have shown you so far has been the preparation. The prayer is the action, and you are ready for it. Here is the prayer Padre Pio left for the wife whose husband has left home. It is a prayer in 7 movements, not 7 separate prayers, one prayer with 7 distinct interior actions. And I want to walk you through each movement so that when you pray it, you're not just saying words. You are doing something specific and real in the invisible world with each movement. You are making 7 precise spiritual actions, one after another, that together constitute what Padre Pio called the complete intercession for a husband's return. The first movement is the movement of placement. Before anything else, before any petition, any warfare, any declaration, you place yourself, your husband, your marriage, and the situation entirely and explicitly in the hands of God. And this is not as simple as it sounds, because placement means release. It means you are not holding the outcome with your hands. You are not managing the prayer toward a specific result on a specific timeline. You are saying with full intention, "This is yours, not mine." And you pray something like this: "Lord, I place my husband before you tonight, not as I want him to be, but as he is, exactly where he is, carrying everything he is carrying. I place him in your sight. I place this marriage before you, not as I wish it were, but as it is broken, separated, in need of something only you can provide. I place myself before you, not as the perfect wife, not as the wounded woman seeking vindication, but as the covenant spouse who still stands in the sacrament you sealed and who brings it before you now. I place everything, the children if there are children, the home, the years, the shared history. I place it all before you. It is all yours. You see it more clearly than I do. You know its weight. You know what is needed. I place it before you, and I ask you to receive it." This first movement clears the space. It removes the white-knuckle grip of desperation. Not because desperation is wrong, but because desperation held tightly blocks the very grace it is asking for. Placement opens the hands, and open hands are hands that can receive. The second movement is the movement of truth-telling. And this movement is about speaking honestly to God about what you believe is holding your husband away. Not as a complaint, not as a list of grievances, but as an act of cooperation with the God who already knows, helping your own prayer to become precise by naming specifically what you are praying against. And you say something like, "Lord, I believe that what is holding my husband away from return is a combination of things I can see and things I cannot see. I see the false peace he may be feeling, the relief of escape that I know cannot last. I pray against it, Lord, not that you take it away violently, but that you let it wear thin in its own time, that the questions it is covering begin to surface through it, that he begin to feel the difference between peace that is real and relief that is temporary. I see the web of the world he has entered, the newness, the lightness, the life that does not yet carry the weight of real love. I pray against its hold on him, Lord, not that you destroy it in a way that destroys him, but that you let him begin to see through it. Let the thinness of it become visible to him. Let what is buried under it begin to make itself felt. And what I cannot see, the spiritual forces, the specific wounds, the specific lies he is being told about himself and about his life. Lord, you see them. I pray against every one of them by name, even the names I do not know, with the authority of the covenant you sealed in our marriage. The second movement does not ask for anything yet. It addresses, it names, it brings into the light of God's sight everything that is working against return. And naming has power, not superstitious power, but the power of clarity. A prayer that names what it is addressing is a prayer that knows what it is doing. The third movement is the movement of intercession for his soul. And this, as in every prayer we have discussed in this series, is where the wife shifts from praying for what she needs to praying for what her husband needs most deeply. And what he needs most deeply is not to come back to her. What he needs most deeply is to come back to God. And so you pray, Lord, I pray tonight for my husband's soul before I pray for anything else. I pray that wherever he is, you are reaching him, that the conscience you gave him, the interior voice that knows the difference between what is right and what is not, is still speaking, that it has not been fully silenced. I pray for his interior life. Lord, for the man underneath the departure, the man who made vows before you and who carries the weight of those vows, even if he is trying not to feel it. I pray that you would reach him, not only in the moments when he is open and reflective, but in the hard moments, the uncomfortable moments, the 3 a.m. moments when everything he has built over the departure goes quiet and the real questions surface through it. Reach him there, Lord. Reach him in the places he thinks you cannot find him. Reach him as the Father who never stops searching. And let your grace do what my love alone cannot do. Let it go where I cannot go. Reach into what I cannot reach, and find the man who is still there underneath everything that has covered him. The third movement is the pivot point of the prayer. It is the moment where the wife's love becomes the most like God's love, not possessive, not demanding, but entirely given over to the good of the man's soul regardless of the cost to herself. And Padre Pio said that when a wife reaches this movement genuinely, when she truly means it, even imperfectly, even through the grief, something happens in the invisible world that nothing else produces. The prayer becomes an arrow, and it finds its mark. The fourth movement is the movement of covenant invocation. And here you do something legally and spiritually precise. You stand in the sacrament that God established, and you invoke its graces explicitly over your husband's soul. You say, Lord, I invoke tonight the graces of the sacrament of matrimony, the graces you poured into this covenant on the day we were married, the graces that are still available, that have not been withdrawn, that are held in reserve waiting to be called upon. I call them now. I call them over my husband's soul, the grace of clarity, that he would see his life as you see it, the grace of holy sorrow, that the weight of what he has done would reach him not to destroy him, but to move him toward you, the grace of holy courage, the specific courage that return requires, the courage to cross the threshold, to carry the weight of what he has done, to come back not as the man who left, but as the man who knows he was wrong and has come home anyway. I call these graces into active operation tonight over the man who is still, before your eyes, my husband, the man whose soul is still, before your law, bound in this covenant. Let the sacrament do what sacraments do. Let it carry grace into the soul of the man it was sealed over, in defiance of distance, in defiance of time, in defiance of every choice he has made that was contrary to it. This is the prayer of covenant authority. And Padre Pio was unequivocal about what it does. He said, the grace of the sacrament of matrimony does not expire when one spouse is unfaithful. It waits. It is held in the treasury of God's mercy, available to the spouse who knows to ask for it. And when the covenant wife asks for those graces to be released over her husband's soul, she is not asking for something new. She is asking for what was always hers. The fifth movement is the movement of the open door. And this is the prayer movement that is most unique to the prayer for return, because it addresses something specific to the situation of the husband who has left the threshold fear, the fear of the face of the wife, the weight that sits at the door he walked out of. And in this movement, you do something counterintuitive. You do not ask God to push your husband through the door. You ask God to prepare the doorway, to make it possible for the man to approach the threshold and not turn back. And you say, Lord, I pray tonight about the door my husband walked out of. I pray that when the time of his return begins, when the false peace thins and the web weakens and his conscience leads him back toward this home, I pray that the threshold he has been afraid to cross would not destroy him. I pray that the weight of what he has done would be something he can carry, not because I am minimizing what he has done, but because I am asking you to meet him at the weight and help him bear it. Prepare the way of his return, Lord. Let the door be what it should be, not a wall of judgment, but a threshold of mercy. I commit tonight to being the wife who receives, not the wife who condemns, not because what was done to me was acceptable, but because I want him home more than I want him punished. I do not have this capacity fully, Lord. I am asking you to build it in me. Prepare us both for the crossing, him to have the courage to approach, me to have the grace to receive. This movement is the prayer that prepares both spouses for the moment of return. And Padre Pio said it is the most overlooked movement of all, because women in this situation rarely think to pray for their own posture of reception. But the posture of the wife at the moment of her husband's return matters enormously. A wife who is prepared to receive is a wife whose prayer has created the conditions for the threshold crossing to actually happen. The sixth movement is the movement of warfare. And this is the movement where you address directly, with the spiritual authority of the covenant wife, whatever spiritual forces have been operating against your husband's return. Padre Pio was explicit. When a husband has left home, there are spiritual forces involved in keeping him away. Not as an excuse for his choices. He is responsible for his choices. But as a reality of the invisible world that the prayer for return must address. And so you say, in the name of Jesus Christ, and by the authority of the covenant God sealed in my marriage, I speak tonight against every spiritual force that is working against my husband's return. I speak against the spirit of pride, the voice telling him that return would be weakness, that a man who went back would be diminished. I speak against the spirit of deception, the voice building the false narrative of his new life, making it appear more solid and more satisfying than it actually is. I speak against the spirit of fear, the fear of the threshold, the fear of my face, the fear of the weight of what he has done. I bind these forces tonight, and I loose over my husband the spirit of truth, that he would see clearly, the spirit of holy desire, that the pull of return would become stronger than the pull of staying away. The spirit of holy courage, the courage that only grace provides, to cross back over the threshold he left from and become the man who came home. The sixth movement is the moment of direct combat. Short, precise, targeted, not theatrical, not loud, but specific and confident. the prayer of a woman who knows what she is fighting and who she is fighting for. The seventh and final movement is the movement of surrendered waiting. And this is perhaps the most difficult movement of all, because it asks you to do the thing that is hardest when your husband has left home. It asks you to wait with open hands, to entrust the timing to God without demanding a timeline, to pray the prayer and release it completely into the care of the one who received it. And you say, Lord, I have brought before you tonight everything I know how to bring. I have placed, I have named, I have interceded, I have invoked the covenant, I have prepared the doorway, I have fought in the invisible world. And now I surrender. I do not surrender my belief that he is coming back. I hold that. I do not surrender my covenant or my commitment to this marriage. I hold those. But I surrender the timeline. I surrender the how. I surrender the specific path his return will take. I surrender my need to understand, right now, what you are doing in his soul. I trust that you receive this prayer. I trust that it is working in the invisible world right now, in ways I cannot see. I trust that the God who created my husband, who loves him more than I am capable of loving him, who sealed this covenant with his own grace, that this God is not done. And I go from this prayer tonight, not with certainty about the date of his return, but with certainty about the God who is working toward it. That is enough, Lord. For tonight, that is enough. 7 movements: placement, truth-telling, intercession for his soul, covenant invocation, the open door, warfare, surrendered waiting. That is the prayer Padre Pio left for the wife whose husband has left home. Pray it as often as you need to, not as a mechanical repetition, but as a living prayer that you re-enter each time with a specific orientation of each movement. And now I want to give you something practical to carry alongside the prayer. Because Padre Pio was never only a man of the invisible world. He was a confessor, a deeply practical spiritual director who gave people things they could actually do in their actual lives starting today. And he said something to a woman in your situation that I want to pass directly to you. He said, while you pray, also live as if the return is a certainty and the timing is God's business. Do not live in suspended animation, waiting for the door to open. Do not put your life on hold. Do not let the absence of your husband be the organizing principle of your days. Because a woman who is living fully, who is caring for herself, growing in her prayer, present to her children, building her interior life, that woman is more capable of the prayer I am asking her to pray than the woman who is spending every hour watching for the door. Live, pray, trust, and do not confuse waiting with watching. Watching is exhausting and produces nothing. Waiting, in the Christian sense, is active. It is the active cultivation of the interior life while God works in the exterior world. Live while you pray. Keep going. Keep building the interior life that will be fully present to receive him when he crosses the threshold. Because the woman who receives him is not a woman who has been sitting at the window. She is a woman who has been growing in prayer, in strength, in the kind of grace that comes only from a life genuinely lived before God during a season of genuine suffering. And that woman, that specific woman, with her specific prayer, rooted in her specific covenant, is precisely the woman God uses to bring a husband home. May Padre Pio, who knelt before God in his own stigmatized body every day of his priestly life, offering his own suffering for the return of souls who had wandered far, intercede for your husband tonight. May he stand before God and present the prayer you prayed, as he promised he would do for every soul that asked for his help. May the graces of your covenant, real graces, sealed graces, graces that were poured into your marriage by God on the day He witnessed your vows, be released tonight over the soul of the man who left. May the false peace thin. May the web weaken. May the original man, still there, still carrying the memory of what he built with you, still capable of the courage return requires. May he begin to hear what his conscience has been saying. And may the door of your home, when the time comes, be the threshold of mercy that only the prayer of a faithful wife can prepare. You're not waiting in vain. You're not praying in a silence. The prayer goes into his soul, and it works. Amen. Before I close, one last thing. If this prayer speaks to where you are, if these 7 movements give you a way to pray that feels both deeper and more precise than what you have been praying, write in the comments, I will pray the 7 movements. Write your declaration. Write which movement feels hardest to you. If you want the surrendered waiting, the open door, the warfare, write it in the comments because your honesty helps me understand what you need next. If this video helped you, please leave a like and share it. Right now, tonight, with a woman who is carrying this same absence in her home and who has not yet been told that Padre Pio left a prayer specifically for her. She's out there. She needs to know. And now, in the next video, I'm going to reveal something Padre Pio said about the signs that a husband's return is near. Not the obvious signs, not the phone call, not the conversation. The interior signs, the things that happen in the man's soul in the days and weeks before he crosses back over the threshold. Padre Pio said he could see these signs in the souls of men who were approaching return. He described them precisely. And when you know what they are, you will recognize them in your husband, and you will know exactly how to pray in that window and exactly what not to do, because there are specific things that can accelerate the crossing and specific things that can delay it. You will not want to miss this. Stay close. Keep the bell on. I will see you in the next video.